We are representing the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy. We are here in front of the Embassy of Tunisia. We are really excited to have an interview with the Ambassador Kasri.
Good morning, Your Excellency Ambassador Kasri. Thank you for granting us the opportunity to interview you. We are Alina Badea and Anna Sarfati from the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy. So we'd like to start off this interview with asking you a question about your diplomatic career. So, Your Excellency, you've held numerous ambassadorships in Asia, in Europe and in North America, as well as within the Tunisian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Could you please share with us your motivations to undertake a diplomatic career?
First of all, let me welcome you at the Embassy of Tunisia and thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about Tunisia, a little bit about myself, but mostly about Tunisia. The interest in a diplomatic career started burgeoning when I was young because I was interested in history, in geography, in other people's culture. So it developed in me as a sense of curiosity for other cultures. And when I grew up, I studied first philosophy and with a history of ideas, sociology, psychology. That further strengthened the interest for let's say, intercultural communication and international affairs. I pursued that afterwards with a diploma in international political relations at the French Institute for International Affairs and Administration, and at the School of Advanced International Studies at SAIS in Washington, D.C. with a diploma on the American political system and foreign policy. And then I crowned that with a master's degree in administration, because diplomacy requires not only curiosity, but also the way to handle cooperation, to handle structure, which is an embassy, which is an institution, and that was the let's say the elements that initiated my interest in diplomacy. And I was lucky to start young. Now I have 37 years of career. I served 4 times as ambassador to South Korea, to India, to Japan, and now to Germany. And beside that, I was the head of the Tunisian Foreign Investment Promotion Agency in Washington, D.C. So this is my 5th time as head of mission. And it was an exciting career with lots of challenges and many, many rewards.
How do you understand exactly cultural diplomacy? It's hard to define.
It is hard to define, and it is, as the world is changing, I think many concepts are changing. And I see cultural diplomacy not as exchange of, let's say, folklore or cultural bands or artists, but also as wider range of communication between peoples, nations, and countries. And I believe that with this era of globalization, with the multiplicity of means and technologies of communication, there should be a new way to generate communication between nations. And cultural diplomacy would have to be widened to include the civil society, not only actors or artists, but also civil society. Civil society is becoming an important actor in nations' transformation and playing a role not only as political and economic actors, but also as an expression of the desire of peoples to reposition themselves in this world, within their own societies and with the world. And I think civil society will have to be included and given a more important role, since, you know, the democratic trend in the world is, thank God, increasing and getting more strength. And I talk about my country, Tunisia, that has been the first country in the region to undertake a peaceful, consensual, and inclusive political transformation. Some people call it the onset of the Arab Spring, but we would like to see it as a deep desire from the Tunisian people to transform itself and to transform its society and to meet the challenges of this globalized world and the challenges of this new international setting and the ambitions of the Tunisian people. We have invested in education since our independence in 1956. We have also a unique program of emancipation of women in Tunisia. We were the first and I believe the only country in the Arab and Muslim world to ban polygamy and to give equal rights to women. So that has generated a new kind of society with new set of aspirations that will have to be met. And I am glad to mention as an example of this new cultural diplomacy that this embassy with my colleagues here, and I'm happy to have a dedicated team. You know, our diplomatic staff is 50-50 female. Mm-hmm. And the technical staff is 3/4 female. So this is to give you an idea about, and the DCM is a female. She's a talented diplomat, and the number 3 is a female also. So this is to give you an idea about women's emancipation and women's ability to play significant roles in Tunisia. So recently, as an example of the embassy's cultural diplomacy, we have hosted in our residence in Berlin the annual meeting of the European Academy of Women's in Business and Politics, the Berlin chapter. And it was an excellent event where they invited their Tunisian partner, a lady who is working on a program with this academy. And the title of this program is Democracy Needs Women. So this is to give you an idea about the cultural diplomacy we are undertaking. And this program is not political. It is not economic. It is basically to build bridges between women from Tunisia and Germany. And one of the main purposes is to prepare the upcoming municipal elections in Tunisia, because we have undergone a political transformation. We have adopted a new constitution. We have held free and fair political elections. But the next challenge will be the local democracy, the municipal elections, and how to implement the principles of decentralization that were enshrined in the new Tunisian constitution. And in that phase, the women's role is very important. So what we are trying to do is to build bridges and to create opportunities for Tunisian women, especially in formerly neglected areas where there is little, let's say, political involvement or social and cultural involvement of women in national affairs, so that they meet with their counterparts in Germany. And it was a very interesting discovery to find out that the impediments that Tunisian women are facing in playing a social and political role are similar to the ones that German women are facing. So they were surprised, but at the same time, it demystified the difficulties that Tunisian women are facing in politics, especially in local and domestic politics. And this is something that we are trying to widen to different communities Also, we are trying to establish or to conclude some twinning programs between cities so that communities can work with each other. Beside the traditional cultural activities, for example, we are hosting cultural events, and either on the national level or with private entrepreneurs. We have also participated to the Carnival of Cultures in Berlin last May. We had a great Tunisian participation. We had music bands coming from Tunisia, and we have direct broadcast for 3 hours from Berlin to Tunis by radio, so people were following exactly how the interaction was taking place in Berlin. And we hope that next year, for May 15th, and I have been talking to the Mayor Müller and to his staff, we will have a bigger and wider participation of Tunisia to this event, so that we can generate better appreciation for Tunisia's culture and also Tunisia's aspiration for the future, because culture is not only the past, it is also the aspiration for the future. So this is the kind of wider vision of cultural diplomacy we are trying to implement here in Germany, with a wider range of subjects and actors, and more, let's say, modern vision of what intercultural communication can be and can lead to.
Yeah. So according to Your Excellency, you think that cultural diplomacy it can help to strengthen ties between Tunisia and Germany?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's an important part of the international relations and diplomatic, let's say, mission and activities, because especially in democratic systems, you need to convey to people so that decision makers will not decide on their own, but will have a popular support or a social support for their perception and their desire to undertake cooperation programs with a specific country. And it is important for us to create that foundation of understanding, of appreciation for not only the history, the specificities of the country, but also how it sees the world, how it sees itself within the international community, and how it sees the world, and what kind of cultural affinities it has with those decision makers in the foreign countries. So it is important that understanding and mutual appreciation has to be built, and it is an important prerequisite to good and solid international relations.
Thank you. So you've shared with us the wide array of activities for cultural diplomacy. And so we'd like to know, do you have any particular strategies in developing these activities? Do you involve, for instance, members of the Tunisian diaspora when you organize these?
We would like to involve as many actors as possible, and we would like to decentralize as much as possible. So the Tunisian diaspora is playing a role, and we are trying to further structure and encourage, not structure in terms of being the active player, but being a motivator to help this community organize itself, communicate about Tunisia, and also try to build bridges. For example, one of the subjects I have, for example, discussed at the annual meeting of the Tunisian-German Friendship Association that will be celebrating 50 years of existence in a few months. I suggested that beside general political contacts or cultural activities, that we target by the year 2020 that each German state will have at least one or two cities twinned with Tunisian cities, especially from the neglected areas, because a twinning program will be a window to the outside world, and it will help them learn how to take charge of their own development, how to try to develop local initiatives, both in terms of city and local management, in terms of generating local activities that will take advantage of the local assets in culture, in geography, in environment, in know-how, etc. So this is what we are trying to do. We would like to conclude as many twinning programs and give them the opportunity to serve as bridges between the Tunisian society and the German society. Knowing that from Germany we have, I believe, and this is my personal belief, that 4 main areas of, let's say, experience sharing and learning from Tunisia. The first one is reconstruction, because we have a country to rebuild, and we need, especially in some areas, and we need that kind of knowledge and expertise. The second point is the regional integration. You know, after the reunification, there was discrepancy between the eastern and the western and the eastern part, and we find similar, if not worse, discrepancy in Tunisia now. So we'd like to learn from the German experience how to reintegrate the neglected areas or the underdeveloped areas in the economic and social mainstream. The third element is local democracy. Our next challenge, and this is one of the main changes introduced in the Tunisian new constitution, is decentralization. And we would like to give the people the possibility to take charge of their own destiny, of their own, let's say, management. And we believe that we have a lot to learn from Germany, because it has developed and excelled in that kind of local democratic rule and management. The fourth element is the German educational system, the dual educational system, by which you have people who graduate from universities with real world and professional skills. They are immediately employable and operational. And that's what we are trying to do. And we are, beside programs of cooperation, for example, I started this year, Monday, January 4th, 2016, with the signing ceremony of a cooperation program between 2 main universities in Tunis and the University of Law and Economics in Berlin, for the transfer of this dual educational system. And we are talking now to the with the German government, with the German universities, about setting up a German-Tunisian university in Tunisia, with the German educational system. So this is the kind of intercultural, because it's education, but also it transfers a way of doing things, of seeing how human skills can be developed. So these are many other issues we are dealing with in terms of building relations and building better understanding between the Tunisian and the German peoples, societies and economies.
And so which are the most important areas of cooperation between Tunisia and Germany?
Well, as I mentioned to you, there are the areas of capacity building, human capacity building, know-how transfer in terms of decentralization, in terms of human resources development. It is mostly to meet the challenges of this transition in Tunisia. We are in transition from a centralized with a democratic deficit, let's say, system to a more democratic, more decentralized, more open, and more knowledge-based economy than in the past. Yes. And we believe that we have a lot to learn from Germany. It is mostly development, but development has its also security prerequisites. So we are dealing with the German authorities, and we are satisfied with and grateful for their support in the security area, but it is mostly to ensure the proper conditions for economic, let's say, transformation. We have undergone successfully the political transformation. Now the biggest challenge is to shift to the social and economic transformation, because people will say, yes, we have a successful revolution, we got the Nobel Prize for the national dialogue, etc., Nobel Peace Prize, but what's in it for me? Do I have a better job? Do I have a better salary? Do I have a better purchasing power? Am I in a safer situation as far as my future and the future of my children? And that is the biggest challenge that we are facing now, and we are very happy with the support that we have been given by Germany, and we believe that there are many areas where we can really support this model of successful transition that could inspire the peoples of the region for a peaceful, inclusive, and consensual transformation, rather than the sad spectacle we are seeing in other neighboring countries, and there is no need for me to mention any one of them.
So prior to being appointed as Tunisia's ambassador to Germany, you were Director General for Africa and the African Union in the Tunisian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So we'd be very curious to know how your work in this position differs to your work in your current position, because of course I guess Tunisia does not have the same relations with the African countries than it does with Europe. So we'd like to know how you experience these two different positions.
Well, I was also twice Director General for American and Asian Affairs. And to be frank with you, we do not talk to the outside world with different languages. We have a development diplomacy. Development with its many aspects, human, economic, social, etc. And the principles are, the basic principles of Tunisian diplomacy are abidance by international legality, non-interference in internal affairs of other nations, peaceful settlement of any contentious issues, etc., and a focus on international understanding and cooperation. So these are the main principles that have applied, that apply in our relations with the American countries, with Asian countries, and with African countries. And our main concern is how to ensure economic development, because there cannot be any stability or security without social and economic development. And it is important that if we are working to ensure peace, security, and stability in the world, that we pay sufficient attention to social and economic development. And that is the main axis of our cooperation with African and European countries. This situation can be different because in some areas we are donors, with some other countries we are recipients, but the principles are the same. International solidarity, international cooperation, and international commitment to build a safer world through social and economic sustainable development.
Now that you mention economic development, preparations are currently underway for the International Conference of Investment,
Yes.
which will be held on 29 and
And 30th.
28 and 29 of November. In which way do you think this type?
29th and 30th of November.
And 30?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, as I read it was
Yeah.
28 and 29. In which way do you think these types of initiative can be a useful vector in cultural diplomacy and vice versa?
Well, it is more of, it will have two components. The first component will be an international expression of support for Tunisia's transition, because we are moving from the political to the economic and social transition. We will have leaders from the world attending this conference to express and reiterate their support to the Tunisian successful experiment. And then we will have a conference on investment. We will present the 5-year economic development plan 2016-2020, and also the big projects, infrastructure projects that will be, let's say, available to foreign investors, be it through public tenders or public and private partnerships, or for, let's say, private investors and entrepreneurs. So these are going to be very important, and we have conveyed invitations to many leaders of the world. An invitation has been conveyed to Chancellor Angela Merkel. We look forward to strong German participation. We have been in touch with the German Employers Association to send a big delegation. We are looking forward to an additional expression and manifestation of German support to the Tunisian transformation and to the challenges that Tunisia is facing, to be not only to meet the aspiration of the Tunisian people, but also to be a model in our region for peaceful and consensual transformation. And you know that the region needs this kind of model badly. So we hope that with the support of our friends and our partners, we will succeed as we have done for the first phase and earned the Nobel Peace Prize, to also build an economy, sustainable economy, open to the world, and that takes advantage of the skills of the people of Tunisia. You know, we have about 250,000 of Tunisian university graduates who are jobless, because we need a new economic model that will create jobs for educated people and not for low-skilled people. So this is the challenge we are facing, and it is a challenge for the future, for the youth, for stability of Tunisia in the region.
So we'd like to conclude by asking you, what would be your advice to young graduates who wish to pursue a career in diplomacy?
Well, it is a challenging and exciting career. It is definitely, there is a saying that intelligence is the ability to adapt. And you've got to have a lot of that. To adapt to many cultures, to many, even countries and cultures evolve. You know, if you live in one country, let's say in the 90s, and you go back now, it's a different country. As the Greek philosopher said, you never swim in the same river twice, because you are not the same and the river is not the same. So you've got to be able to adapt and to adjust. You need to have, curiosity, personal and cultural curiosity, to learn about other people, a great sense of empathy, because you need to put yourself in the other people's situation and shoes so that you can appreciate their Weltanschauung. And the most important thing is not to label, not to judge, but to try to understand.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.